Today I am asking you if you can forgive me, and that is forgiving me for selling a very key player to the squad, but it was for an awful lot of money. Hello and welcome back to Hop to the Top. Hope you're all doing well today as Season 9 awaits us, the penultimate season of Hop to the Top, and big news coming in today's episode. The eagle-eyed amongst you will already know which player has gone because it says it on the screen right now, but the board are delighted with the financial aspects of the Matthew Bottles sale. The question is, how much money did we get from Matthew Bottles, who has gone to Chelsea, interestingly, a club that we're really interested in. They were like the only club willing to pay a lot of money. Lots of clubs bid for him, but Chelsea were the ones that offered an extortionate amount of money. And in the end, we have reached a deal with Matthew Bottles to sell him to Chelsea for £115 million, which is absolutely incredible. It's mental, especially when we consider that we bought him on the transfer list at Roma for 950k. We've sold him for 115 times that, which is absolutely ridiculous. Kicking off his career at Chelsea very well with 2 goals and 3 appearances. It's good going, I've got to say. And obviously is a world-class player for us. He will always be remembered fondly, but we had to sell him because £150 million, we just couldn't turn that down. He wasn't the only player to leave the club as well. After just 1 season at the club, I didn't think he was up for it. Roberto Alvarado has left. He's gone to Stade Rennais for £10 million, so we've made £4 million profit on him, which is pretty good going. Just wasn't hitting the ground running, wasn't playing well, and I was convinced that there were better left wingers out there that we could go and purchase. So we've made £125 million. We sold a youth player for about £500,000, so total, call it £126 million that we have made from player sales. And what we've done with that, we've spent £97 million of it. So we brought in some really good players, I think, that overall strengthen the team a lot more. Before we get into players that we've paid for, we've made 2 free signings, which I think are incredible signings, actually. And I'm really surprised we've been able to attract them to the club. The first of those is Lo Celso. He's come into the club, playing more of the central midfield position this season. He's 4-star current ability, 31 years old, still really, really good. Ignore the wages because they are an awful lot of money, but that's what he wanted, and we needed some experience in that midfield. But he's come from Real Betis, where he is in-game. Obviously, in real life, he's moved to Tottenham, but in-game, he was always on loan at Tottenham, then went back to Real Betis, and has played extraordinarily well there the past couple of seasons, and I think will do fantastically well for us in this Grasshopper squad. So welcome, Lo Celso. But I think more impressively than Lo Celso is the replacement for Bottles, who has come in on a free transfer. It's only Harry Kane, a 34-year-old Harry Kane with 4.5-star current ability. Whilst his physicals aren't the best, they are still very good. His mentals and technicals are superb. But, interestingly, last season, his final season at Tottenham, he still got 9 goals and 27 appearances. Got 14 the season before that, 15 the season before that. 28 goals in all competitions 3 seasons ago. 2 seasons ago was 21 goals in all competitions in the Premier League and things like that. So I think Harry Kane will come into the squad and score plenty of goals for us. So they are 2 signings that I am really proud of. I think they are going to be fantastic additions to this Grasshopper squad. We've also got a player on loan from Sporting, a left-back who is not going to play a single game unless we are... A winger, actually, not a left-back, a left-winger, sorry, who is not going to play a game unless really required to. I wanted to cancel his contract, his loan contract, that is, but we couldn't terminate it because of part of the deal. This is when I was panicking about players, but then of course we sold Bottles, and then I didn't panic anymore because we had loads of money to spend. So don't even think about João Costa. We won't be seeing him much at all. Lo Celso and Harry Kane, they'll be in the squad quite a lot, as will this particular chap, Alex Silva-Reis, coming in from a Brazilian side. He is a right back. Now, we wanted to get back, of course, the absolute legend at the club, Felipe Cruz. However, Porto sold him. They sold him to AC Milan for a good £30 million, which meant he couldn't come back to the club, and we had to look elsewhere. And this chap was available for a relatively cheap deal. £19.5 million was his minimum fee release clause. So he's coming in as our new starting right back. Whilst his crossing and dribbling aren't brilliant, everything else is, in my opinion. With 5-star potential as well, he can serve the club very well. 3.5-star current ability, relatively cheap contract compared to some other players that have come in. So welcome, Silva-Reis. I think you're going to be a fantastic signing to the club. And so now that we've spoken about a Brazilian right back, we need to talk about a Brazilian left-back for £20.5 million. Dorville is coming into the club as a left-back to challenge Guardado there. We were a little bit lacking in that position, and according to the squad, what do you call it? What's this thing called? Squad team report, essentially. Left back was the weakest position of defence, so I thought we had to strengthen that a little bit. Dorville comes in with 3.5 star current ability, looking quite good. Again, crossing and dribbling, not brilliant, but everything else is pretty good and will improve quite nice. I think at 19 years old as well, he's only ever going to improve. And he's better than Guardado as well, apparently. So 2 Brazilians on either wing-back position, which is pretty good going. For £23.5 million, we have signed Brian Gill to play on that left wing position. Of course, we let go of Alvarado. We had to get someone else in that position, and Brian Gill was available on the transfer list. Only 3-star current ability, which seems a little bit low to me looking at his attributes, but I think he's going to be a fantastic player on that left-hand side. In Football Manager, when at the start of the game, he's actually a wonder kid as well, which is pretty good going. So if you want to try and sign him at the start of your game, try and sign him because he is a wonder kid, so will be better than this if you train him properly and things like that. But having a long career at Seville was out of favour there on the transfer list. We've brought him in. I think will be a fantastic player on that left-hand side of the pitch. And finally, coming in for £33.5 million, his minimum fee release clause, the biggest transfer that we've spent this summer, in from Cagliari in Italy, Luca Anselmi, is another striker that we have brought in. Now, he is a really good potential striker with 5-star potential, 20 years old, but crucially can also play on the left wing, and we're going to train him to play on the left wing as well, so we can have some more versatility in the squad. So we could either have Brian Gill or this guy on the wing and Harry Kane playing up front, or this guy playing up front and Brian Gill on the wing. All sorts of different combinations. I think it's going to aid our versatility and things like that. So I'm looking forward to having Anselmi in the squad. He, interestingly, is also a Roma reject, just like Matthew Bottles. So fingers crossed, Roma have let go of another wonder kid, and he comes very, very good for us and scores a hat-full of goals, and he'll be the new Matthew Bottles, and we'll all love him. So that is all the transfer business that we've done over summer. Yes, we have lost a big player in Matthew Bottles, but using that money, we've managed to bring in 5 or 6 really good players that are going to massively improve our squad. So I'm expecting to see a much better showing in the Champions League this season. Unfortunately, we've already played some league games this season, and well, we're not going to be invincible this season, unfortunately. After a fantastic start, a 2-1 win over Servette with Bottles in his final game for the club scoring the opening goal of the game and Capitano scoring the other one. It was very sad to see him go, but Bottles left after that game, leaving with a goal scored. 2-1 victory over Servette, which was good. Then Anselmi scored the only goal of the game against Basel, which was fantastic. Scoring on his debut as well, which is fantastic stuff. Brian Gill also scored on his debut alongside Capitano and Alex Silva-Reis on his debut as well. So plenty of debut goals this season for us so far, as we beat Lausanne 3-0. But then we played Luzern and we lost 2-0 in a game that really we absolutely bossed and controlled. 19 shots to 7, 12 on target to 4 on target. They won 2-0. One of those sort of things. That brought an end to 43 games in the Swiss Super League, which we hadn't lost. Had to end at some point. Luckily, it kind of ended at the start of this season. If it ended on the final game of the season, that would have been heartbreaking. So kind of good to get out of the way early on in the season. We then beat Stade Lausanne in a 2-0 win in the Swiss Cup first round. Nunez and Anselmi getting goals in that game before we took on Zurich. Anselmi scoring a goal. Harry Kane scored on his penalty, and João Soares scored one right at the very end. So despite that loss, we've had a very good start to the season. We are currently second as it stands right now, because Young Boys have won 4, drawn 1, whereas we've won 4, lost 1. So actually second in the table for now. Interestingly, we do play Grasshoppers in today's episode for a fight for the top of the table, which will be quite interesting. But before we do that, we're going to turn our attention to the Champions League, because the group stage draw, well, it is, if I can click on my news article, today, which is fantastic. We are seeded first for the draw, which is good stuff. So we'll draw all the first teams and see what group we end up in. It's Group H, okay? I'm not that makes a difference or anything like that, but Group H. Right, second seeded sides are very, very good. If anyone, I want Lyon, because they've got the lowest coefficient, so I'd like to play Lyon, maybe Inter Milan, but I don't really want a Barcelona or a Man United or anything like that. If we keep drawing the teams, Inter and Lyon are both gone now, so Borussia Dortmund are probably the best team to go for in terms of coefficient. Not in our group, unfortunately. Instead, we get Manchester City, which is going to be particularly tough. Third seeded sides then, we can't have Young Boys or Basel, who have both qualified for the group stage, which is fantastic, obviously, but we can't have them. So ideally, we'd be wanting a Fenerbahce or a Monaco, or a Stade Rennais. We've beaten Stade Rennais a couple of times. We'll take Stade Rennais, please. That would be quite good, as we are looking like we're going to get... Oh, we got Celtic instead. We played Celtic last season, I think, didn't we? I can't quite remember. I'm sure we did. Stade Rennais go into Group G instead. So, again, not quite getting the teams that we want to this season. In terms of fourth-seeded sides, I don't really mind too much. I mean, obviously, Cologne would be the nicest one because they got the lowest coefficient, but I don't really mind too much as we draw all these final teams. Who are we going to get? We get Ajax. So, actually, this group this time around is pretty tough. So Man City, Celtic and Ajax. Well, we have beaten Man City in the European Super Cup. We beat them last season of 3-1, which was quite good going. Bottles scored the hat-trick in that game. But of course, that was a one-off game. City probably going to be more pumped up for this. Celtic, I feel like we've played Celtic. We played Rangers last season, wasn't it, in the Champions League? I'm sure it was Rangers last season. It was Rangers, not Celtic. So if we click on Celtic and we look at past meetings, I'm sure we've played them before in something. Apparently not, so I'm obviously remembering that one wrong. And then Ajax, have we played them before in anything? I feel like we might have done. Again, we haven't, so I'm obviously remembering things wrong. So I think we'll be lucky to get through that group, if I'm honest with you, because that is a tough group in my opinion. Interestingly, Borussia Mönchengladbach are interested in Guardado for £19 million. He's worth £10 million. Considering that we have just bought a new right back, this is quite tempting, actually. Very tempting, actually. Okay, Guardado, let's offer you out to clubs instead, just very quickly. Offer to clubs for... I mean, they're willing to pay £20 million, so let's go for £25 million. See if anyone wants to buy Guardado. We have got one or two youth players who can play at left back and can fill in that position as backup. Otherwise, Guardado as backup would be a little bit wasted, as Capitano is now out for 4 to 6 weeks of the sports hernia. That's kind of upsetting. So this is the lineup for the game against Young Boys, and we have to talk about a small problem that we have with the squad at the moment. As you can see down here, we have 5 non-EU players in the starting lineup. However, we actually have 7 non-EU players total. Now, one of those positions isn't too bad because Dorville is Brazilian and Guardado is Mexican, both non-EU, but they both play in the same position, so we're not going to pitch at the same time. The issue comes is when Capitano isn't injured and maybe he wants to start ahead of Billy Schmitz. Well, at that case, we can't have those players on the pitch because we've got 6 of them, so someone has to make way. So we're going to have to make some compromises throughout the season when it comes to non-EU players. But for now, with Capitano's injury, it's actually okay. So the lineup for today's game is Kalasa in goal with a bit of a new look backline. Dorville and Silva Reese at the wing-back positions, but Ross McQuaid and Harold Dino Bunce keep in that centre-back partnership, I should say. Lo Celso, who actually is Argentinian, but because he's played in Europe so long, does have European citizenship, is absolutely fine to play in that centre of midfield alongside the Brazilian Pedro, who is one of these non-EU players. Nunes, who is also a non-EU player, he's Argentinian, is playing in that attacking midfield position with Brian Gill and Billy Schmitz either side of him, and Harry Kane, which I can't quite believe I'm saying, Harry Kane leads the line for Grasshoppers today. So then, kickoff is upon us, and I'm looking forward to this one. It's been a while, I think, since we've done a Young Boys game on camera, so this should be quite interesting. Young Boys, as well as us, lost their main striker this summer. Guendouzi was sold... I can't remember who he got sold to, but he left the club, obviously, for not much money, really. I think, given the circumstances... Guendouzi went before Bottles went. If Bottles went, I would have done everything possible to try and sign Guendouzi off Young Boys because he is a fantastic young player and was available for less than £30 million for a player that scores bags of goals in this league. I was very surprised at how cheap he went for. We'll double check this in a moment's time, as apparently the VAR is being done for something. I think it's one of their players who is a former player of ours, Daniel Ciccone. I've just clicked on the wrong thing there. Back to live here. Ciccone, I swear, is a former player of ours. It's a free kick to us, apparently. I'm not quite sure what that kerfuffle was about because nothing's happened from it. But Ciccone is a left-back that used to play for us a long time ago. I swear, Fez, I thought we had him for a lot longer than that. But either way, briefly played for us before going to Young Boys for £500,000. In what seems to be quite a cagey game so far, Brian Gill with a free kick, only going as far as the first man, unfortunately. Billy Schmitz gets on the end of the ball, though, putting it into the area, goes out for another corner. Okay, what's happening here with this one then? Brian Gill to put this one back into the area. Again, can't quite beat the first man for whatever reason. Surely that should be the... And why is that even a highlight? What was highlight worthy there, I've got to say, other than Brian Gill not being very good at corners. We should probably take him off corners in future games. So at half-time, with only 2 shots apiece, it's been a rubbish game so far, unfortunately. Assistant manager, tell them what to do. You've not really done that at all. Only Billy Schmidt seems motivated by that, which is a little bit worrying. First highlight of the second half is a free kick out from the back. Silveris on the ball, trying to show us what he can do in one of his first games for the club. Pedro gets the ball up towards Harry Kane, making his second appearance for the club, but can only put the ball wide of the mark from that first time shot. Not really seeing much from him, which is a little bit frustrating. Of course, we've got a player on the bench that we can bring on for him, and I think actually as Harry Kane's rating goes down to 6.4, if I can click on the tactics thing, and Selmy is going to come on the pitch for him instead as that advance forward to see what he can do. Because, of course, we do have some very good players in central midfield now. It does mean that Randy Schneider temporarily is pushed to the bench. What we're going to do, though, is take Pedro off for him, and also we're going to bring on Jordan Platt for the very tired Billy Schmidt, who has just come back from an injury himself, which is why he's so tired. So 3 substitutes at the same time. Also, show some passion out there from the 20 minutes ago or so. Show some passion. I want to score a goal here today. But if that doesn't work, we're also going to say get creative out there for the final 10 minutes or so. Get creative out there. Let's go very attacking. I want to see something from this side as Dorval puts the ball into Nunes. Dorval into Lo Celso. Lo Celso into the middle, only as far as Randy Schneider. The clearance, though, who loses the ball, but we win it back, although we lose it straight away again as their number 11 races up the pitch. Out to their number 2, Milico, who can look to put the ball a bit more central. He does that. Back out to the wings to put the cross in. Are we going to concede a goal at the end? Haroldinho Bunce gets it clear, although Sakone puts it back in. We're not dealing with this properly as, again, young boys are still coming at us. Come on, Brian Gill gets in there. He doesn't get in there. And they turn. Are they finally going to get the shot away? They do get the shot away. Hits the inside of the post and somehow doesn't go in the back of the net. A very big scare for us right at the end of a very cagey game. It ends 0-0. How boring was that? Unfortunately, Basel won 3-0, which means we drop down to 3rd, which actually is our lowest position, which must be for 2 or 3 seasons now, which is a bit mental when you think about it. But only 1 point off Basel at the top. I'm sure we'll turn it around and next episode back on top of the table. So next episode then, I'm feeling like we're going to do a double header in the Champions League. We're going to go through to the Celtic game, then play Servette and Toon off camera, and then do Ajax. So look forward to that one next episode. Thank you ever so much for watching today's video. I hope you have enjoyed it. And if you have done, please do drop a like on the video for me and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. And I'll see you next time for some more Football Manager action. Have a great time. Goodbye.